In the annals of history, accounts of giants have filled diverse cultures, weaving a rich tapestry of myth and legend. From the towering Greek titans to the Chinese Pangu, the colossal Norse beings or even the biblical Goliath, the mystery of these larger-than-life figures has endured. Amidst the array of such chronicles, one enigmatic giant begs attention: the giants of Patagonia. In the middle of the 16th century, a mysterious phenomenon began to make its way into the cartographic maps of the world. They started depicting lands inhabited by giants. A 1544 map of the Americas by Sebastian Munster depicted an area of South America, with the Latin words Regio Gigantum written on it. This translated to, the region of giants. Then in 1562, Spanish chartmaker Diego Gutierrez and Dutch engraver Hieronymus Koch drew a world map that showed depictions of giant men inhabiting the same region. Why were the cartographers of the 16th century suddenly taken by this unexplained trend? As it turns out, it wasn't unwarranted. These were the giants of a region that came to be known as Patagonia. And how this phenomenon began to take over the world is a tale that captivates to this day. In the 1520s, Spanish explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his crew were on the mission to circumnavigate the world. Antonio Pigafetta, chronicler of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition, writes of a strange encounter they had near today's Argentina. He writes,
"But one day, without anyone expecting it, we saw a giant who was on the shore, quite naked, and who danced, leaped, and sang. And while he sang, he threw sand and dust on his head. Our captain sent one of his men towards him, asking him to leap and sing like the giant in order to reassure him and to show him friendship. Which he did. Immediately the man of the ship, dancing, led this giant to a small island where the captain awaited him. And when he was before us, he began to marvel and to be afraid, and he raised one finger upward, believing that we came from heaven. And he was so tall that the tallest of us only came up to his waist. And he was well proportioned. The captain named the people of this sort Patagoni."
While Pigafetta never explained Magellan's reasons for this name, it has been long assumed that pata came from a Portuguese and Spanish word meaning foot. There is another theory that he may have taken the name from a literary figure in a Spanish novel of the early 16th century. Either way, the name eventually stuck and the region became known as Patagonia, which is interpreted to mean land of the big feet. But the story of Magellan's encounter with the giants didn't end there. Magellan decided to abduct a few to take back to Spain, but it was not an easy prospect. The wisely cautious and extraordinarily large Patagonians easily outran the Europeans, and they were far too large and strong to wrestle. As the expedition's chronicler, Antonio Pigafetta, wrote,
"Our men had muskets and crossbows, but they could never hit any of the giants, for when the latter fought, they never stood still, but leaped hither and thither. Those giants ran swifter than horses."
But Magellan came up with a cruel solution to seize a few of them. Pigafetta explains,
"The captain general kept 2 of them, the youngest and best proportioned, by means of a very cunning trick, in order to take them to Spagna. Had he used any other means, they could easily have killed some of us."
He continues,
"The trick that he employed in keeping them was as follows. He gave them many knives, scissors, mirrors, bells, and glass beads, and those 2 having their hands filled with the said articles, the captain general had 2 pairs of iron manacles brought, such as are fastened on the feet. He made motions that he would give them to the giants, whereat they were very pleased, since those manacles were of iron, but they did not know how to carry them. They were grieved at leaving them behind, but they had no place to put those gifts, for they had to hold the skin wrapped about them with their hands. The captain made them a sign that he would put them on their feet, and that they could carry them away. They nodded assent with their heads. Immediately, the captain had the manacles put on both of them at the same time. When they saw later that they were tricked, they raged like bulls, calling loudly for Setebos to aid them."
Magellan allegedly wanted to take back the 2 giants to Spain and prove their existence, but Magellan and the majority of his men didn't survive the journey. And as per Pigafetta, nor did the giants. Both the captured giants perished at sea, one in the Atlantic and the other in the Pacific. And apparently their remains were disposed of. But the lack of remains of the giants didn't matter. The accounts of Magellan's South American sojourn had already entered the imagination of the Europeans, and the Spanish accounts of giants began to make their way in the world maps. Starting there, the phenomenon of giants captured the imagination of travelers and cartographers for a good part of the next 250 years. In 1579, on their circumnavigation, Sir Francis Drake's ship Chaplain Francis Fletcher also wrote about an encounter with giants, writing that he met
men in height and greatness so extraordinary that they hold no comparison with any of the sons of men this day in the world.
But he claimed that they were quite a bit shorter than what the Spanish had described. He put the tallest at around 7.5 feet in height. Though shorter than Magellan's chronicles, these English reports only seem to confirm the existence of giants. There was an argument that perhaps the English just didn't see the tallest of the natives, and as such the giants continued to be reported throughout the end of the century. For example, in 1587 English explorer Thomas Cavendish reported giant footprints in the region. Cavendish's companion Anthony Knivet also claimed to have seen living giants that were 13 spans or 9 feet tall. He even claimed seeing a dead body that was even taller. Such accounts only seem to cement the claims of the existence of giants. Then just before the turn of the century, 2 Dutch captains wrote about encounters with the Patagonian giants. One of them stated that the giants were 10 or 11 feet tall and another 10 to 12 feet. But he also added that only one tribe was that tall. He stated that the other tribes in the region were of average height. But as the 18th century took over, the on-ground emerging reports started becoming more mixed. Some accounts said that there were in fact giants while others said that they were taller than Europeans but could not be described as giants. Patagonia, though, continued to be labeled on maps in the 18th century, though the depictions of giants on the maps started becoming less common. Then, a letter to the French Academy of Sciences in 1766 by Dr. Matthew Matty, the secretary of the British Royal Society, renewed the belief of giant existence. He wrote in the letter,
"The existence of giants here is confirmed."
He was referring to the confirmation of giants at the southern end of South America by English explorer John Byron. In 1767, an account of British naval captain John Byron was published. In it he confirmed giants' existence, and alongside it was an image of a family of giants with a member of his crew offering them a biscuit. This account is why Dr. Matthew Matty wrote to the French Academy of Sciences. He went on to write,
"Between 400 and 500 Patagonians of at least 8 or 9 feet in height have been seen and examined by the company of one of our ships that just returned from a voyage around the world."
This letter was published in the London Chronicle for all to see, but soon after, one of France's most prestigious scientific journals published a claim that challenged the assertion made by Dr. Matty. According to the French journal, the British had made the whole thing up to distract from the mercenary intent of English ships off the coast of Argentina. Byron had officially stated that one of the alleged giants, who afterwards appeared to be the chief, came towards him. Byron called him being of gigantic stature. Byron states,
"If I may judge his height by the proportion of his stature to my own, it could not be much less than 7 feet.
Then in 1767 another British naval officer, Captain Samuel Wallis, claimed to have taken measurements of the inhabitants. But instead of making an estimation like Byron, he brought with him to Patagonia a measuring rod. The tallest man he measured was 6 feet 7 inches. He reported that most, however, were between 5 feet 10 inches and 6 feet tall. The end of the 18th century, though, seemed to throw water on the hopes of giant enthusiasts. In 1773, a book was published that included accounts of the famous explorers of the day. It included John Byron's name as well. It claimed that Byron's previously published accounts about giants were nothing more than rumors. Then in a 1774 book, a Jesuit missionary named Thomas Faulkner, who spent almost 40 years amongst the tribes of Patagonia, mentioned a chief who was 7 feet and some inches tall. He also stated,
"The Patagonians are a large-bodied people, but I have never heard of that gigantic race which others have mentioned."
For most, these 3 accounts signaled an end to the belief in Patagonian giants. It is now commonly believed that these accounts were describing the Welsh Indians who are native to the Patagonian area of Argentina. Their average height was 6 feet or 1.8 meters. At the time, to the average European, these natives would certainly have seemed large, as the Europeans at the time were only 5 feet 5 inches or 1.6 meters tall on average. But modern claims haven't diminished the interest in the existence of giants in the minds of many. If giants did exist in the region, what could explain their absence in modern times? Some opine the giants could have been wiped out by a deadly plague. Others posit that maybe they fell victim to some sort of genocide. But if that is true, what could explain the lack of archaeological evidence of their existence? No proof that they existed has ever been found, nor was any evidence brought back to Europe despite alleged attempts. A possible explanation as to why there haven't been any giant sightings in the modern era, and what may have started the myth to begin with, was published just 100 years after Magellan's circumnavigation. Sir Francis Drake's nephew wrote,
Magellan was not altogether deceived in naming them giants, for they generally differ from the common sort of men. But yet they are nothing so monstrous or giant-like as they were reported, there being some Englishmen as tall as the highest of any that we could see. But peradventure the Spaniards did not think that ever any Englishman would come thither to reprove them.
The mystery of Patagonian giants remains unsolved, with the evidence pointing towards the likelihood of misinterpretations and exaggerations. While historical accounts and depictions on maps fueled fascination with these giants, skepticism and gradual debunking cast doubt on their existence. Without concrete archaeological evidence, the legend of the Patagonian giants may forever remain a captivating but elusive tale from history. Whether the Patagonian giants were a product of exaggerated accounts, cultural misunderstandings, or a kernel of historical truth, their legacy serves as a testament to the enduring allure of the unknown and the enigmatic landscapes that stir the human imagination. To continue your ancient adventures, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button. Till the next time, this is Ancient Secrets.